Inside Story Uganda, real source of political updates.
Around the controversial UPDF Amendment Bill 2025. Well, Honorable Semuju, I guess you've listened to Andrew Mwenda. He's made quite a number of substantive, maybe allegations regarding the spirit and the tone and where it is headed. What's your take?
You see, when Bush wanted to invade Iraq, the first thing he did with his manufactured intelligence was to enlist key media personalities, the Zacharias on CNN and others. They were the ones now talking directly to the public in America, stating claims of how Saddam Hussein had the weapons of mass destruction. They were throwing intelligence reports into people's faces like Mwenda is doing. And eventually the invasion happened. But there were no chemical weapons at the end of the 2011 war in Iraq. Intelligence can be manufactured if you want it. Because from the onset, Museveni wants to criminalize opposition. He will want to criminalize opposition. Maybe the people Mwenda is talking about were sent there by Museveni. I mean, you saw the recent elections in Kawempe. They said Bob Wine and his group wanted to attack security installations, deployed SFC, armed vehicles drove into polling stations, all in the name of intelligence. And as Andrew said, I don't want to be diverted. For me, it does not matter whether SJ, whether Bob Wine, whether anyone else went to Kenya, trained, became what. What does the law in Uganda say? The courts have said if he's a civilian, his address is the civilian court. The same way you went to Tanzania and picked Jamilu Mukuru, who heads a rebel group operating in the DRC. Jamilu Mukuru was never driven to Makinde to be tried by the military court. But Besigye of 2 bullets and the recordings that have been checked by embassies is the one who was driven to the military court. Why not Jamilu Mukuru, whom Museveni has accused of bombing, of killing a student in Kichwamba, everywhere? That's what we must be discussing, not the intelligence that Andrew Mwenda as a journalist has access to. If you have arrested me, I have gone to Sudan, to Al-Qaeda, to anywhere to train. I am not saying don't arrest me. Nobody said don't arrest Besigye. Please produce Besigye before courts, charge him. For the last 6 months, tomorrow Besigye will make 6 months in prison.
Semuju, you are a politician, right? I want us to again try to understand the mind of Museveni. Why did Museveni take Besigye to the military court martial?
So it's Museveni who took Besigye?
Of course.
Yes.
It could never be done without his...
Not the state?
Not the court. Well, Museveni is the state and the state is Museveni. So...
That's a nice one.
So why did Museveni make a choice that Besigye should go to a military court martial? I have no idea. I have not talked to him about it. But I just want to read his mind. You know, if you get to understand Museveni will not see his contest with Besigye as a criminal matter to be adjudicated through courts. He would look at it as a purely political matter to be negotiated politically. So he will use the courts as a platform to find a political solution. If he takes Besigye to military court martial, this is my speculation. I remember that Besigye was not charged with treason in the court martial. He was charged with treachery. It is a very ambiguous charge. He could use it as an instrument to force a political discussion with Besigye on how to resolve the matter. Because Museveni doesn't believe that these political differences can be resolved purely through criminal means. For Jamilu Mukulu, that's why he's there. Museveni's attempt to resolve his issues with Jamilu Mukulu, he sees as a criminal thing. But for these young boys in Nup, the Besigye and others, he would look at it purely with political lenses. I'll give
So,
you an
so
example.
is
Hold a
President
second.
Museveni using the judiciary as a walking stick now to whip the opposition? Is that what you want to suggest? Yes, yes.
I really want you to try to play down your prejudices and first listen to an entirely different
No,
perspective.
no, this is very
Yes.
important.
Let me give you an example. Because Uganda polarizes us, I have been to Somalia many times. UPDF has soldiers there. So let me begin to give him Museveni's mind and the doctrine of UPDF. When I have been to Somalia, I have lived in UPDF camps with Al-Shabaab, former chief of military intelligence, former treasurer, former commander. Hold a second, please.
Yes.
Former commander and stuff like that.
I thought you were giving me information.
Yes, but now he has diverted me to something else. But I want to give a perspective because Uganda polarizes us. I've lived with Al-Shabaab people in UPDF. We've traveled in the same APCs with them. The Americans can't understand how can Uganda fighting Al-Shabaab, having Al-Shabaab in its own camps, retraining them. Museveni does not look at Al-Shabaab purely as criminals, terrorists to be destroyed. He looks at them as politically misguided or misinformed people, whom if we capture in battle, we should bring into a political discussion. So we return to Uganda. It is the way he thinks and the way the UPDF looks at it.
Thank you.
Let me come back to Uganda.
I want to give
yes,
Semuju
I want to
chance
finish Semuju's point I was making. Please, you need to call more NRM people here, maybe retired, who have a good understanding of Museveni's mind. This contest, you see, Museveni is not in military court-martial because he has personal effective control over any decision of the court-martial. He wants people there to use the court-martial as a platform to negotiate a political settlement, not to have a proper criminal prosecution to the end, because Museveni does not see this as a criminal enterprise. He sees that a political problem.
Thank you. Semuju, it's your turn.
And I
think that settles
I
it.
want to thank Andrew for his submission. That's where we have a problem. That you want to use a military and military court as a political platform. And then you will have the Andrews coming on TVs like this one and proclaim that USJ wanted to kill Museveni. If you have evidence, like Andrew, you have said, videos and what, the demand, because there must be standards in a country. Maybe I'm asking too much. If you are going to take civilians to military court and take the real people who are armed like Jamiru Mukulu to civilian court, there must be something wrong with you. You're not going to convince anyone. And yes, we may not have the capacity to deal with you because you are a master in violence. We'll only continue pleading with you. We want to live in a peaceful country. And that peaceful country...
Yeah, but you heard what Mwenda says.
Yeah.
Court-martial can be used to settle a political dispute.
And I agree with him, and I want to thank him, because Mwenda is in a privileged position, not just as a journalist. I mean, someone who stays with Al-Shabaab in the APCs and the camps at the UPDF. And I agree with him, if I have understood him, that actually Museveni is holding BSJ because of politics, not because BSJ wanted to kill him. Even the new people who were arrested, Andrew, I have supporters of Kyagulanyi who are my neighbors. They were picked from a construction site in Mukono. Their only crime is that they were putting on a red beret. They were driven for 4 months, they were away. And during the time they were in a place they don't know, they had 2 sets of military people who were guarding them. One set would be friendly, tell them, you pray, if Museveni wins, you will not die. If you lose this election, you're going to die. After elections, because they have been treated differently, they were driven to a sugarcane plantation in Rugazi and abandoned there at night. And then they walked back, no charge, not even the military court. But after 4 months they were... So the truth of the matter is that what Museveni does, Museveni can be a master, but there is an effect on what he's doing. When you radicalize the politics, radicalize the country, the outcome is that some of the younger people are going to be radicals. The same things that people accuse of Al-Qaeda, of everybody. So if you go bombing people and you provide them with no opportunity to live, human beings can become beasts. When Museveni was still involved, I have said here, when I entered politics 2011, we would go and address rallies everywhere. Today, you cannot. So people begin, it can be Kyagulanyi, you can take out Kyagulanyi, it can be another person. Museveni and his son, who is your friend, and you're in the same political party, they need to reflect on what they are doing, because the temptation by all the strong men in history, whether it is Mobutu, whether it is Saddam, whether it is Gaddafi, the temptation is to think that the force will buy them more time. That's what happened in Sudan. You will have all sorts of militia to deal with the opposition. But the net effect is that you are radicalizing the population, and one time you're creating an atmosphere, an environment for the country to go up in flames. Because you can pick Kyagulanyi, you can pick his supporters, you can pick Besigye, you can pick everybody. But the moment that becomes the rule of engagement, radicalism, violence, you will be stupid not to think that one day you will have, that's what Museveni did. When the Obotes radicalized politics, they were beating everybody. Museveni, and he cannot be him, he fell from heaven, that he will be the last to attempt that road. So the law in the parliament, and Andrew, and I thank him, he has provided it good context. It is not a law seeking to deal with the criminality. It is a law to give Museveni a platform to deal with the politics.
Well, Council Barata.
And just a second, the plea I make, because in Parliament, when they were making the law on rallies, the public order, I was dragged out of Parliament by police. Oranya brought policemen to drag me out because I was fighting that law. Amama Mbabazi recommended that I should be taken to the disciplinary committee of Parliament, and he became the very first person to be arrested under that law. So I agree with you. So that's why I'm not going to plead with anyone. They can pass it. I have told the people that Museveni is like a lion. If it is hungry, it will feast on anything around it.
Well, thank you. Councillor Barata, the general impression about this is that President Museveni is hell-bent on passing this law. Come rain, come sunshine. Have you weighed the implications of this law, one, on the judiciary, on the judicial system of the country, and the impression that it will be institutionalizing the martial law in Uganda?
Yes, you see, Simon, when I was walking into the studio here, you quipped that I have been dodging you for a while, and today you have got me. and I think part of that dodging is because largely I tend to avoid debates that are based on conjecture. Now, my land senior friend here did say clearly that she has not read the bill at all. Not only has she said that, but the rest of us now are discussing Museveni and nothing to do with the law. And this is where this is the, I agree with, by the way, I agree with the old man of the clan that you must be able to have a discussion based on certain clear factual and logical basis. There is nothing spiritual about the act. There is nothing superstitious. You read the act. If you have a problem with Kaunda suits, why don't you debate that this one should be struck out of Schedule B? If you are saying that everybody should have rocket launchers, why don't you say strike that out of Schedule A? You must have a debate that is based on some logic, and because if you're only debating your feelings and debating Museveni, and then the law passes, and then tomorrow you say, but the law passed.
So it's clouded in sentiments.
Whose problem is this? Let's discuss the law.
Are we the ones?
The law is there, but if then you see, Honorable Matembe, you can't say that you have not read the bill, and we are here to discuss whether the bill is good.
To discuss Matembe,
and we are here to discuss whether the bill is correct or it is not. There are certain clear provisions in the bill that are contentious. I am arguing here, and I am very firm in this argument, that the bills comply with the constitutional requirements, that the bills comply with the decision of the Constitutional Court. And this is what we must debate. Because if we go into what feels and whose mind is where, we really have no way of knowing that. What we know is that there is a bill, and that's that. But the other point I wanted to correct, and I will try as much as possible to stick really to the act and the judgment that is contentious here.
It's pegged on your boss.
As I said,
it's pegged on President Museveni.
As
That's
I
very
said,
important.
no, right now the bill is before Parliament. The Parliament is 500 or so people. I do not want to, if it is pegged on him, there is another 500 or so people there to debate it. At least let them debate it. At least let them debate it. And it has been there before. The only things, I think, a few clauses, 117, some amendments proposed on 117 to restructure the courts martial, to create the rights of appeal, which was a very serious issue in the Constitutional Court, creating the right of appeal all the way to the Supreme Court, to create independence in appointments by consulting the Judicial Service Commission, to demand that the people presiding over the courts be qualified advocates, able to be judges of the High Court, etc. So when we talk about these things, and then now we are leaving them aside and we are discussing Museveni and how he might or might not be thinking, it's a debate that I am unable
No,
to...
but counsel,
no,
there is something Honorable Matembe.
No. Uganda does
There is
not
something
live on
that you
freedom.
can dismiss.
No.
In the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision,
Yes.
the president wrote himself and said it was very unfortunate, and he was creating justification
And his son
for
also, you
reinstating
remember.
the court martial to try civilians.
Not reinstating. Simon, you are getting it wrong. And you can get, I want to challenge you, get the
Reinstating
get the
the
ruling.
trial.
Maybe Nicholas can help me.
But
There
he
is
has-
a
he has
specific holding that says the court martial is a subordinate court, properly established under Article 129 1D of the Constitution. So I don't know what you are talking about reinstating. The court martial exists constitutionally. The issue was with its composition, the manner of how it was configured and how it is appointed, and the qualifications of its people.
So the bill doesn't offend.
So let's first understand, because it's a misconception that keeps coming up. And somebody said, they just said it's a disciplinary unit. There were other things called the Unit Disciplinary Committee. There was something called the Summary Trial Authority. By the way, those were already abolished in the original bill before the Constitutional Court. Those were already, even the Field Marshal was being abolished. It's no longer there,
But
at least in the bill. So those were there. Now, the problem with this type of when we divert and start discussing this is then people miss all this. And this is the same way the Constitutional Court ruling has been interpreted, because we go to where we
Can I
want
ask, if you don't
to
mind?
discuss other things.
Can I ask you, are you comfortable that civilians should be tried by the military?
In exceptional circumstances, in accordance with international conventions, in fact,
Are you mindful of the mandate of the courts, the regular courts?
Yes, I am mindful of them. And you see, this is another confusion that people bring, because I suppose, because we are talking to a lot of civilians in all manner of ways. You gave an example, Honorable Semuju gave an example of Jamiru Mukuru. Jamiru Mukuru is charged under International Crimes Division. Why is he not being charged in the Civil Division of the High Court? Why was the other man, Koyelo, why was he tried in The Hague? We did not have courts here.
Koyelo was tried here, that's Dominic Ongwen.
Oh, Dominic Ongwen. Why was he tried in The Hague? Why was we did not have courts here? We had courts here. There are systems in place. Military courts are everywhere in the world. They were not invented in Uganda. So I think we must be a bit more honest.
So you want to suggest that there is a lot of dishonesty in the discussion?
I am suggesting to you that a lot of the public debate is based on conjecture, and perhaps many of us who are having these debates are shielding or hiding the actual facts and the actual things from the people we are leading, so to speak.
Thank you. Nicholas, how much legalese can we dwell on when debating this, the merits of this bill? Or it's more of politics and turns out to be delusional?
Law is politics.
Yes, I agree, but...
The law and politics are
but
fellows, really. You can't detach the two. Secondly, you must understand, when you're enacting a law, there's what we call a mischief rule. What is the mischief the law is trying to try and cure? What Andrew is telling you is this is the mischief the framers of this law are seeking to cure. Okay?
And he's
so
being honest.
Discussing that is legitimate, and we must discuss. I don't know why my learned friend is uncomfortable.
No, I'm not
with
uncomfortable.
The discussions of those opinions.
I am only uncomfortable with the diversion.
But those are not diversions. Those are not diversions.
Nicholas, incidentally, was one of the first people to tweet very extensively about the bill. And I thanked him. I said, thank you, Nicholas, because clearly you have taken time to read the bill close by close.
This is
so I was very happy about this. And that debate, any day, we can disagree on that one, but I am happy to engage on any
Nicholas, this is critical. Yes. Does this bill offend the Supreme Court decision?
In as far as the General Court Martial is concerned and the trials of civilians, I have a different opinion from my learned friend. I think that the provisions being proposed are at variance with the orders of the court. And let me just explain why. The Supreme Court said that you should not bypass ordinary courts. You must strengthen it and allow that court to try all matters of criminal nature, right? Including both soldiers and civilians. In fact, the Chief Justice goes even further to say that you cannot create different systems for trials of the same offenses for different categories of people. In as far as this bill seeks to continue trying soldiers with those offenses and continue trying civilians with those offenses, it is in direct contravention of the orders of the court. The second thing is this.
Could I ask a question?
Sure,
so,
sure.
Aren't you hopeful that therefore, if the law is passed, those specific provisions that contradict the judgment of the Supreme Court can be challenged in the Constitutional Court and they will be struck out?
But why do we want to go through the long route when we can actually address it now? Let's do it now. If that is the approach, there's no need to take us through a process of litigation, of argument in court. Let's address it.
The question Andrew himself is asking, he knows the answer. Last time when he took the anti-homosexual, Museveni wanted it nullified, it was nullified. Now he doesn't want it, will not.
But the other day, on this message issue, the Supreme Court issued a judgment that precisely because of the issues around Besigye, that contradicted Museveni's wishes. So it's.
But let me finish the point I'm making. Let me finish the point I'm making.
That's a good point.
Can I finish, Simon?
There was, I think the other time we were debating bail and whatnot, again, in relation to Besigye. And I asked people, okay, so why don't I hear so much noise about the criminal trial that is going on? And the person has been denied bail over, I don't know, 10 times or something like that. Or why don't I
It's not politically motivated.
But
that's why the
okay,
debate is
fine.
limited.
Shall we give Nicholas
the
chance
principle
to
is simple. The principle is
simple. Nicholas, the space is yours now.
Yes.
You have the platform.
Thank you very much. Let me just point out again why I think the proposals in the bill contradict the Supreme Court, and to try and help my friend convince him to abandon the line that he's taking. The second reason is this. The Supreme Court said that you cannot mix administrative matters from criminal justice. People are saying, oh, there are other courts, there's a court in the police, there's a court for taxes, but those courts don't send people to jail because they're administrative in nature. They're dealing with questions of discipline and processes. For criminal trials, the general rule is go to the criminal court and try the persons there, where the standard of evidence is clear the standard of proof is clear, the sort of things you must do to guarantee fair trial is very clear. That continuing to try people in the military court would never give anybody due guarantee for due process. Both soldiers, by the way, and ordinary people. And so the proposals in the bill, in so many respects, contravene the ruling of the Supreme Court. And if Parliament is minded to respect the decision of the Supreme Court and to respect the provisions of Article 92, they would not pass the law in the form and shape that it is in. But let me come back to respond to what Andrew has said. Andrew is absolutely right. You must get into the mind of the person proposing the law and understand their fears. The problem we have, and I'll give you two examples. One is my own case. You have a unit of the police called Crime Intelligence that had filed numerous voluminous information to the president and to the authorities.
Implicating you.
That I had received $500 million and I was the one financing Chagulanyi, financing the opposition in this country.
500 million?
Yes. Crime Intelligence, headed by a gentleman called Leero. For that I was arrested. You know, I was taken to a lot of inconvenience. It proved that what they were saying was false. Because he didn't read the intelligence report that they had filed, right? The second example is this, same Leero. In 2018, he was still at CMI, right? They arrest Bobby Wine in the Arua by-election. They hold a press conference and parade a number of things they claim were recovered from his room. Several phones and SIM cards, rusty guns, a couple of ammunitions. I was a lawyer in that case. And I remember confronting him at the CID headquarters where he had come to convince me to drag Bobby Wine to the defense. There's a committee they had set up to try and investigate the incident. And we told him, nonsense, we can't do that. The point, Simon, is that the Ugandan intelligence on many occasions have proven to be inaccurate. And to solely base a law on the basis of those false intelligence information is really to create a big problem for this country. The president is only as good as the information that he gets. And a lot of times, I just give you the example of General Kale Kaihura when he was IGP. He had up-to-date minute updates about FDC youth people. What time they left the country to go and train to become rebels, what time they came back, where they stayed. He never tried any one of them because those intelligence information were perhaps not accurate. And so I think that while we must speak to the framers of the law and understand their motivation, we must also point out the fact that oftentimes this kind of information has been based on less factual information. And we've taken actions such as this that have huge consequences. By the time you find out that they are false, people's lives have been upended in so many ways that you can't even recover from it.
So you want to suggest that government is reacting with paranoia and misinformation?
What I'm suggesting is let us have a deeper, longer discussion about this law and the mischief that the state is seeking to cure. Let's put that to test. Why would you rush to do this quickly without adequate public consultation and dissection of these issues?
We're taking a break in the next few minutes, but I would love to hear this from you. It looks as if the legal discussion has perhaps hit a dead end, or it's not been exhausted fully. Do you think this law should be confronted politically?
What is it? Is it even politically initiated? Because when I talk the other guy, I only wish that one day he can end into that military court. Yeah, I really wish it, because when we are talking, we senior citizens are talking from a backward information of the suffering of this country. And you see these Gen Zs talking like, as if we know nothing.
No, I think that's harsh. He's a lawyer.
Did you hear what he said about me?
I always said that you said
these Gen Zs
you had not read the bill.
who don't know where we are coming from.
He's an NRM legal advisor.
Much
You
older
wouldn't
than
describe
Gen
him
Z.
as a Gen Z.
I don't
looks
know
young
the
and
difference.
small.
I thought Gen Z is the generation after us.
He's a bit small, but he's not as
I
young.
thought this generation, my son, yeah, my son.
The Gen Z.
It could be my son category. So, for me, what I was saying, I always speak my mind. And that doesn't mean that I don't know law. I don't know whether you have a doctorate or master's degree. But I want to tell you that I'm very highly
I've
qualified
seen many doctorates. I've
in these
avoided those
matters. In these matters, especially with the intelligent one. Don't just talk like that. So what I was saying is this. You said it should know is legal, not political. The whole idea of wanting to get people, Ugandans, in the military court, suffer there, whether it is to negotiate, whether it is for them to be bought to leave their views and go with the views of the NRM, it is all wrong. Military should handle its own military things and allow. The whole idea is like Mwenda put it here. The whole idea of Museveni not wanting opposition to disturb him in his life presidency is the whole question here. And that's why you find, you remember the 100 millions they talked about? Then it went like this, which we had was going hard enough for these people that when the law comes, they just pass it. So, when I come here to talk, by the way, on behalf of Ugandans, which this young man is saying is just giving our own passions and feelings. When we see things go wrong, we are elderly people, we must point out that. I still emphasize what my brother here was saying, Nicholas, that if there is a judicial system that is there and established to deal with its own, the right people it must deal with, why do you come in and